how's life? Have you died recently on a paddleboard incident, or?
I have not died recently. I do want to blanket apologize if my audio is echoey tonight. It is 88 degrees here right now.
Oh no.
And I live in a country that does not believe in air conditioning. And my studio is the hottest room in our apartment. So I'm not recording in my usual box of shame because
It would be a hot box of shame.
And not in a fun way. Yeah.
What is the fun way to pass out?
Hotboxing. I meant like a fun hot box.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, it would not be that. It would be me.
Oh my god, I keep pulling the stupid cord out of my freaking laptop. Everything's screwed up right now. I have to have all the cords out because all the cats have cones on their heads and they pull cords out of walls when they expand too far. We're a mess. Okay, here we go.
We should probably do an intro.
Yeah, hot box of shame. Welcome to Supposedly. I'm Jessie.
I'm Rue.
And we're going to talk about some creepy fucking stuff.
Yeah, we are. How is your house?
Good.
Okay.
We did. Might help if I put my microphone in place.
It might.
Good. Did I talk to you after we did the clearing and all that?
Yeah, you said it felt a lot better. You were sleeping. Have you had the electrician out yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But I have been sleeping better. The energy definitely feels better in here.
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal was, but it feels better. We haven't had any other incidences to report yet.
That's good. That's awesome.
But I will, of course, keep you posted.
Yeah, please do. Trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, as a, gift to our listeners, we are not recording at 5 a.m./11 p.m.
Yeah, you're welcome for that.
You're welcome. We're sorry about last episode. I was really proud that I was able to find something cute for the title, though. Like, I really nailed it.
What did you name it? Because I haven't peeked yet.
Oh, hold on, because I don't remember it. It's Very Boofy Dogs and Ghost Chicken Nuggets.
I like it. I dig it.
That was the best I could do.
Very boofy dogs.
Because literally everything else would have just been like crying sound sad emoji.
The unofficial title of last episode.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I know that we're kind of on a time frame and you're really excited to tell me your story. I have a hell of a story, so let's rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll. Do it.
Holy shit, I'm hot. Okay, let's do this. I'm so sweaty.
So, today I am going to talk about shrunken heads.
Oh, I'm so here for this.
Oh, are you? And this story takes so many frickin' wild turns that I am pumped to bring to you the history of shrunken heads. Tiny heads. Okay, I'm going to start making our theme music.
I know.
Sorry, Mike Carlin. We
have this beautiful theme. Thank you so much, Mike. And we just sing all the time on this show.
I know. Okay, so there are thousands of shrunken heads in museums all around the world. And the shocking truth is, most of them are real, authentic human heads. Now, I bet you're like, Jessie, what do you mean most of them are real, authentic human heads? And I will get to that. But first, let's talk about where they come from. How are they made, and what purpose did they serve?
What?
So our story begins with the Shuar tribe, deep within the Amazon in a remote jungle in Ecuador. They had a reputation as ruthless warriors, and in fact were the only South American indigenous peoples never to have been conquered by the Spanish Empire, which is huge, because the Spanish Empire was all up in there conquering tribes. So, they created and mastered the art of head shrinking before it was banned in the 1960s. Now, they call their shrunken heads Sansa. Yes, pronounced like Sansa, the girl in the Game of Thrones. The girl in Game of Thrones, not the Game of Thrones. But I don't know.
Do you need to go to the Walgreens?
It's fascinating. I may have been watching some videos on the YouTube. And then I got on the Instagram. Sorry. So they called their shrunken heads Sansa.
Okay.
Spelled T-S-A-N-T-S-A, but pronounced Sansa.
Right.
And that's their word for victory, power, and pride. All kind of rolled into one.
Mm-hmm.
So the Shuar believed by shrinking the heads of their slain enemies that if they carried around the Sansa, it would protect their families from vengeful spirits of their enemy. They could seal the spirit within the Sansa and therefore kind of trap it and prevent it from seeking revenge on themselves and their loved ones. Now, when you think of a genuine shrunken head, you immediately think of a few characteristics. Charcoal darkened skin, sealed eyes and mouth. So I bet you're wondering how it was done. Well, first the Shuar warrior would fast. Well, I guess technically first he would kill his vanquished enemy. So first, they would kill an enemy from a different tribe. And then the Shuar warrior would begin fasting to prevent the warrior from being influenced by their slain enemy's spirit prior to the Sansa being complete. After the enemy was killed, of course, they would decapitate the head. The next step in the process was the removal of the skull, and then 3 pins would be inserted to secure the mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
Or in later years, the mouth would just be sewn shut. They would kind of use what they had available to them.
Yeah.
So in some genuine shrunken heads, you'll see 3 pegs securing the mouth. Sometimes you'll see sutures, and sometimes you'll even see both. The eyes would then be sewn shut next.
Would they remove the actual eyeball? Or is the eyeball still in there?
I believe the eyeball is still in there.
Damn,
I didn't find any information that said otherwise.
Huh, okay.
They could have removed the eyeballs and someone could have left that out in all of the stuff I read, but for the heck of it, let's just assume they're in there.
Okay, cool.
I should also go on to say that the exact process of them doing this has kind of been lost to history. All that we have is passed down stories from former tribe elders who sometimes would be told by a grandparent how it was made, or so some of these steps, this is stories passed down through the tribes.
Yeah, it's not exactly a wiki how.
Yeah, remember it was banned in the 1960s, but actually they stopped doing it much prior to that. And we'll get there. So the eyes were sewn shut, and with the mouth and eyes shut, this was then sealing in the spirit of their vanquished enemy. With the mouth and eyes sealed shut, the head was then placed in boiling water for an hour. And then the skin was filled with hot pebbles and sand. And the last step of this process was the ironing of the outer skin with a hot, flat rock, thus shrinking the head and securing the spirit of the Sansa trapped inside. Next, the warrior would go to a particular waterfall and drink a potion that I really have no idea what was in and could not find any information to indicate what was in the potion. But this potion was said to regain their strength back from the fast during the process of the Sansa making. The Sansa would then be worn on a cord by the man who had killed his enemy and created the Sansa until he could absorb the powers of that spirit, and thus ensuring that there would be no revenge sought on him or his family. This took about a year or two, and then the Sansa would be discarded.
Okay.
So I bet you're wondering, if they're discarding the Sansas, why are there so many shrunken heads in museum collections? Well, a few years ago, scientists ran DNA analysis on many of the shrunken heads within their collections globally, and this is what they uncovered. Around the middle of the 19th century, the Shuar stopped discarding shrunken heads, and here's why. In the 1840s, Western explorers came in search of the rubber tree to Ecuador, and they became fascinated by shrunken heads. Now, you got to remember, in Victorian times, it was a very macabre era.
Yeah.
Public executions were all the rage, hangings, dissections, and oddity collections.
Yeah.
Oh my. In fact, many people owned cabinets of curiosity in Victorian times. And if you don't know what a cabinet of curiosity was, it would be a little cabinet in which Victorian people would keep little mementos of different things. Sometimes it'd be human oddities, sometimes it would be pictures of extraordinary people, sometimes it would be things with an interesting backstory, but they did this as a form of entertainment. When dinner guests would come over, oftentimes after dinner, they would retire, and they would open up their cabinet of curiosity and have great and wonderful conversations with the people in their presence.
People would have had podcasts back then, man. Like, this is not a new thing.
Oh, yeah.
People are like,
not at all.
Why is everyone so obsessed with murder these days? Everyone's got a murder podcast. It's like, bro, let me tell you about mummy powder really quick. Like, this is not a new thing.
Quit taking my next episodes. If you're wondering why there aren't a lot of mummies around, it's because we ate them.
Whoops. Or we put them
But
on
we'll
our
get to it.
faces. But it's fine.
White people ruin everything.
And that's the episode.
Pretty much. Okay. Speaking of white people ruin everything, these explorers exploring in search of the rubber tree then decided to kind of make, what's the word? Establishments? Colonies.
Colonize, yeah.
They colonized.
Of course they did.
Establishments. Fight the establishment. Yeah, so they colonized in Ecuador. So the Shuar started selling their discarded shrunken heads instead to explorers who would take them back to Victorian England and America to kind of show off to people and for their own cabinets of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, news spreads overnight that this is the it item, the must-have for your cabinet of curiosity, for private collectors, for circuses, and more.
Mm-hmm.
It created a market instantly, and the demand was so great that the Shuar were running out of discarded shrunken heads quite quickly. In fact, shrunken heads were the height of the trophy in the human oddities collection category in Victorian times. So, colonial settlers in Ecuador began creating fraudulent shrunken heads to kind of meet the demand. Mm-hmm. They did this using animal skin and leatherworking techniques, and some of these have been uncovered in museums after multiple rounds of DNA analysis and visual analysis. So you can actually kind of spot the difference between a genuine ceremonial shrunken head and one that has been constructed out of animal skin. Further DNA results done on collections revealed the presence of human female shrunken heads in a few collections, including one in Poland. Well, this is really weird because Shuar warriors were always male. So people are wondering, why are there female shrunken heads when genuine Sansas were always male? Have you guessed it yet?
I'm guessing I hate it.
Okay. And why?
I mean, knowing our culture now, my brain goes like to sex workers and women who are lost and or stolen.
Well, I mean, you're off, but it's
Thank
no
God.
better.
Oh, okay, cool.
She was definitely a murder victim.
Great.
The Shuar tribe began slaying innocent individuals to meet the demand created by English and Americans. And these are known as commercial shrunken heads. There was no spiritual aspect attached to these acquired heads at all. Europeans began trading guns for shrunken heads, which in turn allowed the Shuar to meet the demand much faster. In addition to that, they would pay even up to $25 for shrunken heads, which in money back then to a small tribe was a fortune.
Yeah.
For one shrunken head. It triggered an explosion of violence. Blame and retaliation ran high between tribes and spiraled out of control, causing full-on wars. A lot of these differences between commercial shrunken heads and genuine ceremonial shrunken heads and even false shrunken heads can be identified under photographing the items with UV light. Smooth, hairless skin indicates that the head has been ironed with a heated rock, like we talked about, and it is an indication of a genuine ceremonial Sansa. Now, flash back to the colonial settlers of Ecuador, who began studying Shuar techniques and duplicating them using corpses of the deceased and selling them off. Now, most of these heads show signs of hair and decay under UV light. The corpses were readily accessible via grave robbing or unclaimed bodies in hospital morgues. These heads are often European in descent, but it gets worse.
Of course it does, because this is supposedly.
As the demand grows, even children weren't safe.
Yep.
Both the bodies of deceased children and decapitated heads of murdered children from local tribes were used.
Oof.
The proud Shuar tribe was pushed to the brink of extinction due to the wars and just the terribleness of all this, until Christian missionaries arrived preaching an end to wars and the discontinuation of the proud history of the Sansa. Now, when I say this, I don't mean to say this as, oh, white people screwed things up, but then white people came in to fix it. This is directly verbatim told from the current chief of the Shuar tribe.
Yeah.
that their history of the ends of the stanza became due to Christian missionaries who arrived.
White people
Now,
screwed it up, and then white people tried to unscrew it up by screwing it up in a whole different way.
Different white people tried to unscrew it up.
Yeah.
But the damage had been done.
Right.
Now, eventually, shrunken heads lost their allure to Europeans and Americans, as Victorian fascination turned to modern repulsion. And that, my friends, is the story of shrunken heads in stanzas.
Damn.
But I'm going to end it on a little bit of a positive note.
Okay.
Some of these scientists that have done DNA analysis and photographic analysis, I should say, they've also done something to kind of remind people that shrunken heads aren't just a weird oddity item.
Mm-hmm.
They were once people.
Yeah.
So many of these scientists are now doing facial reconstructions digitally to try to bring back what these people once looked like, thus putting a face and tying a more human element to it.
Yeah.
I remember when I was really little, I went to Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum, and I saw my first shrunken head there. Now, whether it was authentic or whether it was commercial,
Right.
I'm not really sure. But I remember thinking of it just as a thing, not necessarily as a person.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really great that they're doing this because now, besides some of these shrunken heads in museum collections, they're displaying these recreations of what the people once looked like. So you're now putting that it was a person to it. And I think that's incredibly valuable for all of the members lost, whether they be slain enemies from Shuar tribes, whether they be corpses that were exhumed and grave robbed, whether they be murdered victims of other tribes. I think it's amazing to put a face to that story.
Yeah, well, I mean, anything that can humanize, I think, is huge, both from like the emotional connection it evokes, but also the science of it too.
Absolutely.
I mean, like the reconstruction of like mummies is so fascinating.
Oh, fascinating. I save every time I see a new facial reconstruction, whether it be from the Viking era or more modern recreations. Julius Caesar has had one. I just find them fascinating because it really does put a face and a human element to it.
It does. And I mean, I know that like, especially with, like Caesar and stuff, we have busts and stuff, but short of like having an actual cast, it's really cool to see an in the flesh, because even sculpture feels so removed from humanity.
So what'd you get?
All right, I'm trying to get my notes to cooperate because I, of course, forgot to charge my tablet, which is my specialty. I am going to be telling the story of 657 Boulevard and The Watcher. Have you heard of this?
No, I'm ready. I'm all ears.
Dude, I'm obsessed. Okay, I finally got my notes to cooperate. Mostly. All right. We're filling time. Okay. So we're going to go back to June of 2014. So Derek and Maria Broaddus and their 3 young kids aged 5, 8, and 10 buy a house at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. I was like, NJ, what's that? New Jersey. Which is about 45 minutes away from New York City. And of this town, Westfield, in an article from The Cut, they said directly, and I love the shade that this article threw, they said the most pressing local issues of late, according to residents, have been the temporary closure of Trader Joe's after a roof collapse and the rampant scourge of, quote, unconstitutional policing, by which they mean aggressive parking enforcement. And then they note, Westfield is 86% white.
Of course. All right, so.
So, you might get a parking ticket at Trader Joe's.
Where the roof has collapsed.
So the Broaddus
in 2014.
Right, yes. So the Broaddus family buys this house, and it's like
I'm sorry, can we pause for a moment just for you to try to watch this conehead climb up things?
Oh, no.
All right, you missed the good part where he was really struggling. Okay.
Okay, so this house is like huge. It's got 6 bedrooms. It cost $1.3 million.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just a few blocks away from where Maria grew up. So at the time,
6 bedrooms, that would be nice.
Right? Yeah. So at this time, Westfield was ranked the 30th safest town in the United States.
That's pretty high.
It's pretty high.
Especially when you're talking about towns, not even states or cities.
Yeah. And so the family was really excited. This was going to be their dream home. They were already trying to figure out which fireplace Santa would use that Christmas. And I then had a pause of like, which fireplace? Like, excuse me?
Oh, so there's more
Yeah.
than one fireplace. Okay.
I'm too poor to have that problem. My mom used to tell me Santa came through the vents because we didn't have a fireplace. She's like, he comes through the furnace. I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Have you watched the Santa Claus where he comes through the little thing and it all opens?
I think that's where she got the idea, but it just kind of makes me think of another Christmas movie, Die Hard, which is just him crawling through ductwork. And I'm like, that's Santa. Bruce Willis is
coming.
Santa.
Santa's coming.
Yeah. Okay, so Derek was a senior VP at an insurance company in Manhattan, and he had come from a working class family in Maine, so this was kind of like their hard work paying off. He'd just celebrated his 40th birthday, and things were feeling really secure. So,
gotta feel nice.
Right? Yeah.
6
but it
bedrooms, financial security.
It gets not nice.
What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, glad you asked, Jess. So, 3 days after closing on the house, a letter arrives in the mailbox addressed in blocky handwritten letters to the new owner.
Oh, okay.
And so a lot of the story,
Did it say like there's a ghost there?
No. We wish it was a ghost. So a lot of this story I'm just going to be reading because there's a lot of these letters and they're too good to omit anything that I could find. So this letter was typed and it said, "Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within? 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out."
Whoa, okay. All right, I'm intrigued. Okay, and you said there's more than one letter?
Oh, there's several.
Okay, so how'd they react to that?
Well, we're not done yet. So
there's more. Okay.
I see already that you have flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Bad move. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy. You have children. I have seen them. So far, I think that there are 3 that I have counted. Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family, or was it greed to bring me your children? Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me. Who am I? There are hundreds and hundreds of cars that drive by 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I am in one. Look at all the windows you can see from 657 Boulevard. Maybe I am in one. Look out any of the many windows in 657 Boulevard at all the people who stroll by each day. Maybe I am one. Welcome, my friends, welcome. Let the party begin. And the letter was signed in a cursive type, The Watcher.
Nope. Pack up the stuff. We haven't fully unpacked yet. Just get some masking tape. We're out of here. Done.
Burn it down.
Done.
Burn it down. The fact that they do not burn this house for the insurance money is amazing to me. Kudos to this family because that would have been my step 1.
Nope. Peace out. Selling it again. We already got a real estate agent. Let's just do this. Okay.
Yep.
So what happens next?
Okay, so apparently elsewhere in the letter, the Watcher said, I asked the Woods, and the Woods were the people who they bought the house from.
Okay.
I asked the Woods to bring me young blood, and it looks like they listened.
Oh, that's creepy. So they're in on it. Maybe. Potentially. Possibly.
So the face you're making is the face that Derek made when he read this letter. It was like 10 p.m. when he read it. He was over at the house to do some painting. They're trying to get it move-in ready for their family.
I think the Woods just wanted to get the fuck out of there.
Well, keep listening. And so he'd been working alone, and so he freaked out. He called the police. They show up and read the letter, and the officer who gets dispatched just says, quote, "What the fuck is this?" And then was like, do you have any enemies, I guess?
Yeah, I don't know that I would know how to react to that showing up on a case or something.
Yeah. So Derek was like, cool, that doesn't
Okay.
help. I'm going to go back to my wife now. And so he showed Maria the letter, and they wrote an email to the Woods, the sellers of the home, John and Andrea, to ask if they'd ever received a letter like that. Because remember, this watcher is saying that his
They've been there
father
for
and
generations,
grandfather, yeah.
right.
And so the couple responded the next morning that they'd never received a letter like that in 23 years of living there until a few days before they moved.
They had been watching all along. Or the torch got passed from dad to son, finally. I don't know.
So Andrea said that she recalled the letter being odd, but didn't really think anything of it. Which, like, clearly she's not a murder podcast person, because you and I would have been like, we need to do something about this. Yeah.
Nope, this is the problem.
Yeah, but they'd always felt safe in the house. They seldom even locked their doors. Like, that's how chill they were.
Stupid when people are sending you letters about your children. Okay.
Well, I mean, over the 23 years that they lived there.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the next day, both couples went together to the police station and they filed a formal report. Detective Leonard Lugo told them to tell no one about the letters, as at that point, all of their neighbors were suspects. So he was like, don't feed into it, see what happens organically, and we'll try and figure this out. So obviously, the couple's really paranoid in the weeks to come. Derek even went as far as to cancel a work trip so he wouldn't be too far away. And when they were at 657, Maria would keep the kids from wandering in the yard, because it was like a big yard. Like I said, it's a huge property.
Huge estate.
Yeah, and she would like call to them and be like, hey, like, get over here. Apparently at one point, Derek was giving a tour of the renovation to another couple on the block and was alarmed when the wife said, it'll be nice to have some young blood in the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's weird.
Because that's what the watcher said. So nothing really came of that, but we file it away. The contractor who was working on the house arrived one morning to find that a sign that he'd staked into the front yard had been ripped out overnight, which is weird. Being the 30th safest neighborhood, there's not really mischief happening.
No teenage punks or anything.
Yeah. So 2 weeks pass like this, and Maria checks the mail. Her stomach drops when she sees the familiar blocky letters on an envelope.
Okay, what does it say?
And this letter reads, welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard. The workers have been busy, and I have been watching you unload carfuls of your personal belongings. The dumpster's a nice touch. Have they found what is in the walls yet? In time they will.
Keeps coming back to the walls.
In this letter...
What do we think is in the walls?
I have no idea. Shrunken heads.
I would be all up in those walls.
I would be knocking down every single wall. I would be like HGTV when they're like, we want open concept, and it's like...
I'm like, we're just doing that now.
That's load bearing, Martha. And it's like, I don't care.
There are no rooms anymore. What's in the walls?
So in this letter, the watcher addresses the Broadduses by name, but misspells it as Braddus. Also in the letter, the watcher kind of flexed on their knowledge about the family, naming the kids by their nicknames in birth order.
Ooh, okay.
Which is like, because, you know, you can look up public record and be like, oh, these people have these kids. And it's like, but to know like what the family calls them.
Right.
Is freaky.
They're definitely watching.
Yeah, I would hope so. That's their name, is it?
You would hope so? Why? Why would
you're gonna call yourself the Watcher, don't disappoint. You can't be the Watcher.
So far, he's not.
He's not. And so he says, I am pleased to know your names now and the names of the young blood you have brought to me. You certainly say their names often. The Watcher mentioned one of the children by name, recounting seeing her paint at an easel on the enclosed porch.
My goodness, is the Watcher living in the wall?
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I don't love that at all.
Have you found out what's in the walls yet? Is it him?
That doesn't come up like, I think you cracked it.
But you know the story.
Yeah, we don't ever really talk about what's in the walls. Somehow they don't care?
The Watcher's in the walls, guys.
Dude.
I solved this unsolvable case in what did it take me? 10 minutes?
That's it.
Case
Go home.
closed.
It's over.
All right. Thanks for
Okay.
joining us on Supposedly.
Bye. So the watcher says, is she the artist in the family? 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found all the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement, or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. Will they sleep in the attic? Or will you all sleep on the second floor? Who has the bedrooms facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in. It will help me to know who is in which bedroom. Then I can plan better.
That's not okay.
Not okay. All of the windows and doors in 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. Who am I? I am the Watcher, and I've been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. The Woods family turned it over to you. It was their time to move on, and kindly sold it when I asked them to.
You're kind of creeping me out right now.
I'm trying to.
Okay, yeah, I know it's very effective. Go on.
I pass by many times a day. 657 Boulevard is my job, my life, my obsession. And now you are too, Braddis family. Welcome to the product of your greed. Greed is what brought the past 3 families to 657 Boulevard, and now it has brought you to me. Have a happy moving in day. You know I'll be watching.
Creepy.
Uh-huh.
Is it some creepy retired guy, maybe?
Just
I'm
nothing better to do.
Retired guy with nothing better to do. Or I'm thinking deranged vagabond living in the walls.
I really like the second thought. I have my own beliefs, but we'll discuss that at the end.
Well, you know more information than me, so why don't you tell me some more?
So clearly Derek and Maria are thoroughly freaked out, and they stopped bringing the kids to the house at all, and they delayed their move indefinitely and moved in with Maria's parents, as they'd already sold their house. So there was mounting suspicion, obviously, about who wrote the letters. Due to the prestige of the area, especially that street, there was a notion that maybe the letters were written by someone who was angry over having lost out on a bid. But here's the thing, the first letter was postmarked June 4th, which was before the sale was public. Oh, your cat just did something bad and scary.
He missed.
Oh.
He was trying to jump on the bed and he missed because of his cone. And he's not my cat, he's my roommate's cat.
Oh, okay, that one. But anyways, so the sale was never really made public. Like, they never even put a sign up. So for the Watcher to know it was on the market is unlikely. So a few days after the first letter came, the family went to a barbecue across the street that was welcoming them and another new homeowner to the block. The Broaddus family hadn't told anyone about the Watcher, just like the police told them. And so they were really paranoid at the party and kind of were like looking for clues because everyone at the party were
that's what I'd be doing the whole time.
And the creepy thing is that, like, they didn't tell her kids, obviously, because they're little. And
Who's
so they
the
were
host of the party? It's probably the host of the party.
But they were like, the kids were just running around mingling with everyone who was probably a suspect. And Maria said, we kept screaming at them to stay close. People must have thought we were crazy. So Derek is at the party and he's talking to a neighbor, John Schmidt, who lives a few houses down, and told him about the Langfords, an odd family who lived next door to 657. The house was owned by Peggy Langford, who was in her 90s, with several of her adult children in their 60s living with her. John told Derek about Michael Langford and described him as a Boo Radley type, odd but not dangerous. So the couple thinks that they've solved the case. They're like, clearly it's Michael, because the Langford house was actually on the side of the house that the porch with the easel was on. So they're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. So the family had lived there since the 1960s, when the Watcher's letters said that his father had begun observing 657. Richard Langford, Michael's dad, had died 12 years earlier, which kind of fits the, like, when he was
timeline of he's now the Watcher.
Right. So Detective Lugo already knew about the Langfords and had actually questioned Michael, but there was nothing to do after Michael said he knew nothing. But they kind of agreed that that was probably their man. So the police, unsurprisingly, did absolutely nothing. They just decided that the letters probably weren't dangerous and the writer probably wouldn't do anything. But Derek and Maria decided that probably wasn't good enough. They're getting at this point multiple threatening letters about young bloods.
Probably is not good enough, right?
Yeah. And Derek told the cops that if he found the Watcher before they did, they would be responding to a whole different type of situation.
Fair.
Like, yeah, do something or don't be mad when I do.
Do something or more paperwork for you.
Literally. So the couple began their own investigation. They set up webcams. Derek would often do stakeouts of the property and work to set up like line of sight and earshot range. He had all these papers up of like, this house is in range. Because like the dude knows the nickname. So clearly he's in range.
Straight up Charlie Day in it.
Yeah, Derek went full Pepe Silva. And so the Broadduses also actually hired private investigators and former FBI agents, one actually who was the inspiration for Clarice in Silence of the Lambs. So they had a full arsenal going. So the team identified that due to the tone of the letters, the writer was likely a voracious reader, and that the lack of curse words despite the anger suggested that they were working with someone who wasn't like a macho man. The team also hypothesized that maybe the writer was obsessed with the Watcher film with Keanu Reeves.
Okay, I could see that.
Serial killer stalks the detective on the case. So the team agreed that violence was unlikely, but that the errors and typos indicated erratic behavior. They also noted the seething anger towards the wealthy, especially...
Wait. Errors and typos are a sign of erratic behavior?
Because of how eloquent it is, it's in this very formal kind of almost Old Englishy like writing, that it's like clearly you're intelligent enough to know how to string, these eloquent poetic thoughts, but then you're like misspelling, like he used the wrong form of to in a couple places, and so it's like those little slips.
I was gonna say I've got some bad punctuation and
but when you're doing this flowery, the house has been watching, and
probably
but
gotcha.
It didn't stack up to the vocabulary necessarily. It's like, okay, you put all this thought into wording it, but then you don't like
follow through.
Yeah. Got it. And they were referring, so with the anger towards new money, they were referring to this section of a letter. The house is crying from all of the pain it is going through. You have changed it and made it so fancy. You are stealing its history. It cries for the past and what used to be in the time when I roamed its halls. The 60s were a good time for 657 Boulevard, when I ran from room to room, imagining the life with the rich occupants there. The house was full of joy and life and young blood. Then it got old, and so did my father. But he kept watching until the day he died, and now I will watch and wait for the day when the young blood will be mine again. So the team considered that maybe the Watcher was a descendant of house staff who was resentful of their proximity to the house, but not being able to attain it. So maybe it was like the child of a maid or something like that.
And they wished to have the life of the children that lived previously. Yeah.
Right.
They lived with the family. Yeah, I get that.
And so the Broaddus family, now I'm saying it like the Watcher, the Broaddus family was like, okay, maybe since this person is so attached to the house, if we send out a letter that we're like going to tear it down, they'd get pissed and like respond. So they send a letter to the Langfords, being their next door neighbor, and they're like, hey, we're going to tear the house down, but nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
So the trail kind of went cold, and that's pretty much the end of what happened in 2014. Eventually, another letter came.
Ooh.
657 Boulevard is turning on me. It's coming after me. I don't understand why. What spell did you cast on it? It used to be my friend, and now it is my enemy. I am in charge of 657 Boulevard. It is not in charge of me. I will fend off its bad things and wait for it to become good again. It will not punish me. I will rise again. I will be patient and wait for this to pass and for you to bring the young blood back to me. 657 Boulevard needs young blood. It needs you. Come back. Let the young blood play again like I once did. Let the young blood sleep in 657 Boulevard. Stop changing it and let it alone.
Well, this person definitely has problems. We know that much.
Yeah. So at this point, the couple's lives kind of start to fall apart. Derek's super depressed. He's obsessing over this. Maria's suffering from PTSD. They needed sleep aids. Derek felt a lot of shame owning this big, huge house, but having to then go live with his in-laws.
Yeah.
Like he would go and mow the grass at this beautiful home they were supposed to live in.
Totally fair.
And then have to go and mow his in-laws' grass. So they then decided to try and sell the house 6 months after they bought it. But rumors had already spread. This is a tiny town.
Right.
And so that drove away anyone who would have been interested. They went against their realtor's wishes and showed every prospective buyer the letters. No one wants to buy it because of that.
Yeah, I would be like, nope.
Mm-hmm. So a year later, in June 2015, the Broadduses filed a suit against the Woods for not disclosing the letter that they got, And the story ended up going completely viral. They were swarmed
fair.
with news vans and media requests. But the shitty thing about this is they hadn't told their kids. And so the kids wake up the next day and it's like, wow,
and they
why
found
is
out.
everyone with microphones? I'm just trying to get on the school bus kind of thing.
Right.
And so all of a sudden the case was being looked into again, both by like Reddit armchair detectives and real detectives. And it was at this point that Michael Langford was again looked at more closely, and it was discovered that he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, which
that's a pretty close match there.
Yeah, which is what his family attributed to his odd habits of spooking neighbors by walking through their yards and looking through their windows.
Okay, well that's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking more and more like a suspect.
Yeah, but it could just be his mania. I mean, it's not cool to do that, but it kind of is understandable.
Right.
If he's having these kind of manic episodes, that would feel like something he was inclined to do. So, and here's the thing, neighbors didn't believe that he was capable of writing such letters, which I feel like is just them underestimating him because of his diagnosis.
Yeah, that could be, for
people
sure.
with schizophrenia can be absolutely brilliant and totally capable of writing those kind of letters. Eventually, forensic specialists looked at the letters and they discovered that it was actually a woman's DNA on one of the envelopes.
That doesn't mean it wasn't him.
Yeah. But then they hit a dead end.
But it's interesting.
It is. They hit a dead end when Michael's sister Abby was not a match. And so once again, they ruled out the Langfords, but the family was still pretty convinced it was them. It was later discovered that another family who moved in around the same time also received a similar letter from the Watcher. And it was considered a great oversight by the police that the neighborhood was not more sufficiently canvassed. Like, if they'd just done a thorough investigation, we would have found this out and had a lot hotter leads.
Okay, yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
They should have stepped it up.
Uh-huh. And so one night, while detectives were watching the house, a young man stopped his car in front of the house, and they're like, oh, this might be it. So they looked at the plates. It was registered to his girlfriend, and when the police questioned her about him, they discovered that he lived in the neighborhood, and she also said that he was, quote, into some really dark video games. And one of the detectives believes he remembered one of the titles involving a character, the Watcher, but it's kind of thought that it's more likely that he actually was misremembering The Witcher.
Fair, okay, and also, it's one thing to play violent video games.
Exactly.
It's another to, let's just go ahead and say that right now.
Yep. I watched the BuzzFeed Unsolved on this.
Bruce killed a lot of Sims.
And that's exactly what BuzzFeed Unsolved was talking about. They were like how everyone who doesn't play video games thinks of video games. And it's just like accurate. I'm almost done. At this point, the story has kind of become an urban legend and was actually turned into a Lifetime movie, but the Broadduses did not agree to this and actually filed a cease and desist, but it failed because of loopholes, like the letters being from the Raven and not the Watcher. And the couple being interracial, which is like the most bogus loophole ever. They're like, it can't be you, he's black. And I'm like, that's whack on multiple levels.
Hollywood technicalities. Mm-hmm. Although Lifetime movies, I don't think that all of them.
They are shot in Oklahoma. No, I don't know.
Yeah, no, a lot of them were shot in, I thought, Arkansas.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Anyway, so I could be wrong about that.
Local rumors.
I'm sure they're shot lots of places.
Probably. Local rumors are that the couple wrote the letters, getting in over their heads with the expensive home, and they're like, they moved from a $300,000 home to a $1.3 million home over the course of 10 years. And so they think it's a scam, but like, he's the senior VP of like a huge company. Of course he's made some money, and
right,
kind
and
of a rags to riches story.
Bunch of children within that time too.
Yeah. Okay. And they he grew up kind of blue collar and has like made this career for himself, so that's kind of bogus. So in 2016, they put the house back on the market, but with no luck. The realtor suggested selling it to a property manager who could tear it down and divide it into 2 lots and build. But this was rejected at its hearing because the plots would be 2.5 feet short of neighborhood regulations.
That's so stupid.
HOAs are bullshit. I'm just going to say that right now.
Oh, agreed.
So even more frustrating is that a few years later, this would happen again with another plot in the neighborhood, and they were granted an even bigger exception. So it was kind of like bias against 657.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Mm-hmm. So several families in the area who had spoken in opposition about the plot division received spiteful handwritten letters signed Friends of the Broaddus Family. But Derek later confessed that he did it out of anger and revenge. He wasn't proud of this and hadn't even told his wife, but it was the act of a desperate man.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, he was just pissy, and he was like, I want you guys to know how it feels to have these anonymous letters threatening
Right.
you.
If you're
Which,
gonna
like,
be like that,
I get,
fair.
yeah. It's not
Yeah.
cool. Don't do that, Derek. But yeah.
But at the same
So,
time,
yeah. So
yeah.
eventually, an older couple with 2 big dogs and grown children agreed to rent the home with a clause that they could terminate the lease if the letters started again. 2 weeks later, when Derek went to go do some maintenance, the tenant handed him an envelope. And this one says, "Violent winds and bitter cold to the vile and spiteful Derek and his wench of a wife, Maria. You wonder who the watcher is? Turn around, idiots. Maybe you even spoke to me. One of the so-called neighbors has no idea who the watcher could be. Or maybe you do, and you're too scared to tell anyone. Good move. I watched you as you watched from the dark house." It goes on to say, "A car accident, maybe a fire. Maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away, but makes you fell sick day after day after day. Maybe the mysterious loved ones suddenly die. Planes and cars and bicycles crash. Bones break. You are despised by the house, and the watcher won." The renters were a little spooked, but they agreed to stay in the house if Derek installed more security cameras. Nope.
Go on again.
And Derek said, when interviewed, "It's like a cancer. We think about it every day." As of 2018, there was a new tenant at 657, but the Broadduses are upside down in the house. The rent doesn't even cover the mortgage. Their kids are teased at school, and they still suffer the psychological impact. So
That's terrible. And
we
we
have
don't know who it is
no
still.
answers. We have no solutions. It's
I
still...
think it's living in the walls. I want to know what's in the walls.
I really like that theory, because I do
Why
lean
has nobody
towards...
looked in the walls?
Right. Like, I do lean towards Michael, because some of these grand delusions can happen with that diagnosis. I worked with people
Fair.
with schizophrenia, and I've seen kind of what that mania can look like, and so wouldn't surprise me if that was kind of where he's going. But no, I love the idea of something in the walls.
I think someone's living in the walls.
Yeah, I do too. So that's the story of the Watcher.
Bum, bum, bum.
But,
so where can they find us on
yeah.
social media?
So you can find us at supposedlypod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or at supposedlypod@gmail.com. We would love
Please
to hear
reach
from
out
you.
to us.
Yeah.
If you have any stories you want us to cover, if you have anything you want to talk about yourself that may have happened to you, hit us up.
Yeah,
We just like to know that you're out there.
we'd love to chat. But thank you
And
so
catch
much
us next
for joining
time
us on
on
Supposedly.
Supposedly. Yeah, that was kind of a thing.
Yeah.